South Africa has just been through the most serious outbreak of civil unrest that it has seen in the 27 years it has been a democratic country. So since the fall of the racist apartheid regime. It's involved some protests, violent protests of a political nature, but most of it has been looting, vandalism, attacks on shopping malls, arson in factories, people being killed. We've had hundreds of deaths. 3,000 people are arrested, likely to go to prison. Just an extraordinary outbreak across 2 provinces. So that's about a third in population terms of the country. But you're talking about a massive breakdown of public order that eventually was only stopped when soldiers with armoured vehicles started to be deployed onto the streets.
Ufika uthole kuso. So manje masekunje sobhadalela abantwana ngani.
I saw the place engulfed in flames. I was sitting crying, helpless. My livelihood has been taken away from me.
The trigger for the unrest was a political one. Former President Jacob Zuma went to prison on a contempt of court charge, actually, for refusing to appear before a judicial inquiry probing systematic corruption under his rule. He eventually handed himself over. A few days later, suddenly there's a massive wave of initially direct action protests, which are fairly common in South Africa, blocking roads, but then which quickly, very quickly evolved into something much broader, involving targets which would not normally be associated with looting, which would be associated with economic sabotage of a very strategic nature. The combination of the two has led many analysts to believe that the initial protests were politically organised by supporters of Zuma, and much of the subsequent violence and vandalism was part of the same plan to make the country effectively ungovernable, possibly even for the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, to be so damaged by the violence that he himself has to resign and the government effectively falls. South Africa is basically a one-party state. It's been run for nearly 3 decades by the African National Congress, the ANC, the party that played a very significant role in the end of apartheid. You basically have the ANC trying to sort out its own problems, and you end up with factional battles within governments being played out on the streets, with the entire country being held hostage. So you've got a combination of the politics, but then also you've got the socioeconomics. You've got millions of people in South Africa, tens of millions who are living below the poverty line, who are angry, marginalised. You're looking at a country with the highest levels of inequality, according to some indices in the world.
It's not about or Zuma or what's about poverty, my sister. And we dodge. I want balambile abantu. Akunomsebenzi ayikho. Lengeke sidodge.
Kahle kahle arena next and hazobona batho banka at some point ubona hore dishopo di tlokwala kaofela and tlosala o sena next. O so ipotsa hore after ntho tse ke tlo survive jwang ntho tse di so.
The effects of this will be devastating because in and of itself, it's an economically hugely damaging event.
We understand that that damage could be upwards of about $1 billion, thousands of jobs lost, about 40,000 small businesses that might never reopen again because they simply didn't have the insurance.
But it's important to note that the violence was relatively localized, confined largely to those places where Zuma has support, or at least where Zuma's supporters could mobilize people. And it also saw an astonishing outpouring of civic responsibility and pride, often on a very local neighborhood level. Wherever there had been violence, you had communities coming together to clean up the streets.
We've got our staff members here helping cleaning up. They know they're not going to get paid. There is no money to get paid. But we're going to try and get things back up again.
Everybody's looking at the unrest as the key moment and the violence and the protests, which is entirely understandable. But in many ways, it's what preceded the unrest that is really important. Can you send a former president who is clearly just flouting the law? Can you send that person to prison like any other citizen? And I think that's where we'll see what's going to happen in South Africa. If the ANC, the ruling party, finds some way to smooth over internal political dissent by giving Zuma a break of some sort, then they are in real trouble, and South Africa is in real trouble, because it means that the ANC's interests are more important than those of 60 million South Africans. And that is a real problem for a government and for a country.